Gentlemen, welcome to Laptop Lap Dances 2024 post-draft recap. It was a very wild draft. First year in a new format. Let's recap some of my favorite picks. Now we're going to look over some of the best overall draft picks and just better overall drafts in general. And then we'll get to Josh's, because I can assure you Josh is not included at all in anywhere close to the best overall draft. Now, Stephen Witt is going to be my first big surprise. So, as you guys know, Stephen Witt has been the butt of every fantasy football joke in this league, probably for the last 5 years. Stephen chronically has come unprepared. He's made laughably stupid picks. Who everyone in this draft remembers Matt Breida. It was almost as terrible as Josh's Trey Sermon pick, and from the double tight end season. And I had honestly lost hope that Steven would ever be relevant fantasy football wise. But boy, was I wrong. He got Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes with his second pick. He got the Kansas City Chiefs stack of Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. But I think my biggest takeaway from Steven's draft is just value. In the 5th round, he gets Josh Jacobs. 6th round, he gets Aaron Jones. 7th round, T. Higgins. 8th round, Chris Godwin. Just a heck of a display of value in those mid rounds, and I think that's going to carry him throughout the season. I think 1 through 8, Steven filled out his roster how he needed to, and which in years past he had struggled with. So Steven, great job to you, buddy. I'm ready for you to have a run this year. Now, Philip's draft, I wasn't overall super crazy about at first. So, Phil, I believe I'm not a big fan of the Bijan Robinson pick myself. I think he's going a little rich for my blood, considering his lack of production last year and the reports that Tyler Algier is going to still play a major role. I particularly don't really care for it. But what I did see in Phil's draft, kind of like Stevens, is just the value is just insane. He got Lamar Jackson 1st round. He got Dak 3rd round, which I think once the CeeDee Lamb contract comes back up and gets resolved, I think that's a great pick. And then these two, Chris Olave, Devontae Adams, 4th and 5th round picks. You just can't beat it. Devontae Adams in the 5th round is probably is a steal. That's about 2 rounds, probably after he was projected to go. I would say about 3. I really like some of his other picks. Christian Kirk, I think, is really good. Raheem Mostert, I think, is going to be really good. Sorry, Danny, I'm not a big fan of taking Devon Achane in the first 4 rounds. I think the better value is going Mostert. He was running back 1 last year, running back 2 last year in fantasy. I think that turns out really well. I also like the Mark Andrews stack that he has going, so he'll have both the Ravens, one of their biggest targets, and the running quarterback to help him score touchdowns in the red zone. Good job, Philip. You did good. Now here's comes some of the worst drafts. One of these wasn't bad. The other one I feel like honestly has just chronically underachieved in the draft for several years. And I think now it's just time to acknowledge that a step back has been taken. Now, the step back that has been taken. Now, we all remember Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick in the Brady era, no one thought they could beat him. Josh was a 2-time fantasy football champion. But as the times have changed, Josh's drafting has, over the years, gotten worse and worse to where we are today, which this draft, I am sorry, Josh, was downright pathetic. Um, his first his first 5 to 6 picks, I believe, were the best of probably any in this draft. The Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb in the 2nd round is the best pick in this draft, I think, in my opinion. If he has a contract, he's a top 5 pick, guaranteed. That's locked in. Where I think he went off the rails was picking Sam Laporta in the 3rd. Sam Laporta is a great tight end, but there was tight ends way after that. There was Trey McBride, George Kittle, Mark Andrews. They were tight ends that you didn't have to go top 3, 4 in the draft. And I think that was just impulsive and being scared that he would not find one later. Or he thought he could get cute and take Jared Goff later in the draft, which wound up not being able to happen. I think the worst pick he did was Ramondre Stevenson. That's probably the worst pick of this draft. Probably one of the worst draft picks in this league. Probably not since the Trey Sermon one, but probably the Matt Breida one, I think, is what I would just compare us to. Because it's just terrible. I don't know how else you describe it. If you wanted a Ramondre Stevenson clone, you could have just drafted Devin Singletary, and probably in the double-digit rounds, like Phillip did, and pretty much gotten the same production. Ramondre's going to be on a terrible team this year. Quarterback play's probably not going to be good at all. From what's coming out of training camp, Drake May, it has not done very well, and he might be sitting behind a 6th-round pick. So I do not see the vision here. I didn't see the vision with the DeAndre Swift one pick either. He went DeAndre Swift over, I believe, he picked Matt Stafford, which wonderful, great to it. Josh went about 9 rounds without picking a quarterback, and the one he picked peaked probably in his prime has long been gone. He's constantly injured and is best known for getting himself into trouble by being an idiot. I think that this is probably, I think if he wanted that, honestly, drafting Kirk in the Deshaun spot to me would have been better than just drafting Deshaun, period. And I think the Tony Pollard one, I believe he was looking at what mid-tier, he was going on a mid-tier running back shopping spree. But 2 of these running backs aren't even mid-tier in my opinion. Ramondre and Tony Pollard, not even remotely close to mid-tier, probably like low-tier RB2, probably RB3 for both of them. The one thing I can say nice about the Swift pick was that Swift is at least an RB2, but the Eagles were so confident in him that they let him go in free agency and gave guaranteed money to Saquon Barkley, which they never do. So I would say Josh's first couple picks were great. The last part, that was terrible. I would say that he might have switched places with Steven and so with some of these picks, because after about round 5, it's just I lost the vision completely. So Josh, I'm hoping for the best for you, buddy. I love you, but I don't understand some of these. The other one I was not a huge fan of was Noah. Now I know Noah is a big Los Angeles Chargers fan. He's a big Justin Herbert guy, which means to me that he does not care about actual production whatsoever from his quarterback and banks purely off potential and his ability to sling the ball about 120 yards and hit a fan in the bleachers. I did not see the ideal of the Trevor Lawrence pick at all. That to me was not the greatest pick in the world. Especially, Josh Allen obviously was great. I think I'll give him numbers. But I think he could have gotten a better QB too, honestly. I think if he would have he could have even went Caleb Williams probably in that slot. That's probably a better pick considering just the amount of supporting cast around him compared to Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to have a rough year with no Calvin Ridley. Pretty much getting rid of Calvin Ridley and replacing him with Gabe Davis, which I think is just abysmal. And I'm also, not that I'm not a fan of the Marvin Harrison Jr. pick, but I think at the same time, you never know with rookie wide receivers, and I'm wanting to wait and see on that. I would have taken probably a more proven receiver in that section. You could have went with a Puka Nacua. You could have, there's any number of receivers you could go in that slot that would have done better. Chris Olave is another one. Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Drake London. Not as much Drake London, but you get the point. Any of these receivers have proven more in the NFL than Marvin Harrison Jr. has, and I'm on the wait and see train. The one I really do not get at all was Malik Nabers. Not because Malik Nabers isn't talented. I think he was probably one of the best wide receivers in this past year's draft. I think I could kind of see changing him and Marvin Harrison Jr. 1 and 2 interchangeably. But he's not going to do anything in New York this year. I don't think Daniel Jones could throw a ball into the ocean. I don't think he could hit me with a ball if I was standing right in front of him. He is probably the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. So I think going Malik Neighbors with a top, let's see where he went, about a top anywhere pick, top 7. Even a 7th round pick to me is a little bit too high for my taste. There are other receivers you could have went with right there. There's Devontae Smith, Amari Cooper. Those who had went after, and I think honestly just get better value. And the other one that I think also just kind of I didn't jive with was Calvin Ridley. I think Calvin Ridley is probably the biggest letdown in fantasy football last season of a number of different letdowns. But he had a lot of expectations going into last season, and I think his ineptitude at catching the ball is part of the reason why he's not with Tennessee anymore, and I feel like that probably contributed to Trevor Lawrence's issues. Not saying that Trevor was very good last year, because having him in fantasy, he was not very good at all, and I know Josh in this league can also attest to that. But I do think that I'm not sure how I feel about the mayonnaise sensation Will Levis. I personally don't think that having a older DeAndre Hopkins and an older Calvin Ridley, who I think is past his prime, don't think that's really going to make a difference. So I want to see going in the season what happens to Noah's team. I think Noah leaned a little bit too hard into youth and people not on their second contract, to be frank. But having Josh Allen, having Jahmyr Gibbs, I think that's probably going to be quite decent. But we'll have to wait and see. Drake London is on Noah's team, so he will be able to start and go through some of these other places. But going Malik Neighbors over Devontae Smith, Amari Cooper, Zay Flowers makes no sense to me. But I still think his draft was better than Josh's, quite frankly. So make that of what you will. Guys, I enjoyed the heck out of it. I was not going to put myself in the best category because, unlike other commissioners, I think that you should be objective with your league. So y'all let me know if you think I missed anything. I'm really excited for the season. I'll have our next video ready to go for week 1 coming up shortly, and our matchups submitted in Sleeper. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.